Jersey facility and may be monitored and or recorded for security reasons.
Right, hello there. I'm with Edward at Moye Prison, or at least I'm not with him. I'm speaking to him on the phone. We can have a chat.
Right.
And what's your routine so far today? What have you done today?
Well, this morning I woke up, had a cup of coffee, and been over to our compound, which is the gardening centre in HMP. Basically today just watered everything that needed to be watered, did a bit of weeding, and planted some new tomato plants.
So the garden project goes ahead, does it? Because I rather got is that for flowers or for produce?
Well, there's a combination of both up here. You've got one for flowers,
right,
and then one for produce as well. You've got really two main sections for produce, and the rest are for flowers and show competitions.
Is that something that interests you? I mean, obviously, if you're in the prison, you want to be doing something, but does gardening interest you?
Well, I've been gardening since I was 2 years old with my dad. So, I mean, I do like the gardening aspect to being up here, as it does get you out yourself quite a bit, and at least keeps you a bit occupied instead of being behind closed doors.
Right, and you get paid for doing that, presumably?
We do get paid, yes, a very small wage anyway, for doing what we do, yes.
There was some time when they were wasting a lot of the vegetables because they couldn't do much with them, but has that changed? Are they all being used now, the produce?
I'd say about 60%.
Right.
The rest do become waste or not used. Most of that will be the lettuce, which we grow copious amounts of lettuce, and virtually none of that's used up here because they all buy that from external suppliers.
Is that all under plastic?
That will be under the plastic, yes, indeed.
Are you allowed to eat any of this stuff in your cell? If you grow some nice lettuce, are you allowed to take it back to your cell and have a munch?
No, we're not allowed that. Anything grown over there has to be used over there. Then the produce which you do.
Oh, really? That's a bit disappointing.
Exactly, and then obviously what we do consume, what we do grow over here, then just take it to the kitchens on site to be used within salads and wraps and stuff like that, which we're given here.
I'm interested in this whole process because obviously I can't imagine what it's like to be, in theory, locked away from society. But the fact that you've got that activity, does that help with your mental state? Is it a positive to be able to do that every day?
Well, for me, yes, because obviously gardening has been a passion of mine, as I said, since I was 2 years old. But for other people here, they just find it an utter waste of time. They just go over and sit down and play games, or basically just sit down and listen to the radio all the time and don't really do anything constructive with it. And
for those prisoners, is there no motivation? Does nobody say, well, you ought to be doing something, they ought to be getting involved?
The officers do come around and get them to do something, but as soon as they're out of shot, eyesight, they just go back to what they were doing, which has been nothing, or just talking or listening to the radio, or generally just being fools. How
much longer are you in there for, Edward?
I'm here just over 2 years now.
Another 2 years?
Another 2 years left, yes.
Is this your first time in Moye?
No, it's my third time up here now.
For similar offences?
Similar offences, yes.
Obviously, one concludes from that, then the prison isn't having a very good effect. It's not making you, or whatever the problem is, it's not changing, is it?
No, I mean, there's no proper rehabilitation up here, so all that happens is, yes, we come up here and get locked behind the door for X amount of months or years or however long it is, and then that's it, thank you, off you go.
Since you've done, this is your third term, what do you think of that process? I mean, is there some process which would stop you offending?
Well, they need better management up here. They need more help for the people who are actually here already.
Right.
I mean, and the help which is available is only you have to sign up for it. It's not offered as soon as you get up here. You first have to be convicted, and that in itself can take anything up to anything up to a year for some people to actually get up to that stage where the help is then available to them.
Right. When you were convicted, were you out on bail or were you detained?
No, I was detained from the start for all my times which I've been up here. Which actually, for the help, is actually slightly better because the time spent up here on remand is then just taken off your final sentence.
So it's taking off your sentence, but of course it's bad luck if you don't get, or good luck if you don't get sentenced, but it's rather bad luck if you've done 12 months on remand, isn't it?
Exactly, and then if items then are acquitted, which has happened, well, to me as well, the time served up here, you don't get any type of compensation for, I would say, wrongful imprisonment.
You don't. And are there many prisoners there on remand at the moment, as far as you know?
There are a few up here, yes, indeed. I'm sure that's going to increase, obviously, with the courts opening up down from the COVID situation.
Is there a special remand section so that they're not mixing with convicted prisoners, or is there?
No, they just go behind their door into isolation, so they have separate exercise routines. But no, the food is just taken to their cell, and obviously the officers here do wear the masks and try to slow the spread of corona. But we have been lucky; we haven't had any reported cases up here anyway yet.
Obviously, you know, the general public feeling is if you've done something wrong, you deserve to be locked up. But it's a very ancient process of just locking people away, isn't it? I suppose.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, we're meant to be becoming more involved as time goes on, but I fail to see how just taking away somebody's freedom actually benefits themselves in the long run. If anything, it does more damage than good.
Because obviously, I don't know if you've got family, but when you come out of it in a couple of years' time, when you get released, do you know where you'll go?
I'd imagine I go back to my parents for the moment, and then after that, I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, I've had too many bad experiences on this island that I feel I want to remain. Chances are, I think I might get off this island just to clear my head fully and then begin a life again.
This is the number 4 interview I've done, and this is one of the themes about rehabilitation. There's no prepared, but I'm not even. Are you convinced that rehabilitation is possible? Do you think it could happen?
In this current state up here, no.
No.
I mean, at the moment, you've got 2 criminal psychologists who, that's on a volunteer basis, where you can decide to engage them or not, but they don't really get to the heart of the matter for it, as in not proper psychiatrics. Which is what I feel the prison needs, especially with the mental health up here. For some of the prisoners, they do need proper support.
Is yours a mental health problem, do you think?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because obviously just being banged up behind your door doesn't do anybody any good, because all you do is just sit and think and stew. And then when you do actually manage to get to talk to somebody in confined spaces for about an hour or so at a time, and then that's usually only once every 2 weeks or so. So for the bit of benefit which you do get, the time being spent behind your door then basically negates that process.
How do you analyse it yourself? Do you think you've got a gene that's wrong, or something that why other people don't commit crime and you have committed supposedly a crime? I presume it's a crime.
I wouldn't say no to gene. I say it's the nurture of Jersey, and everything else is happening, because obviously everything over here is highly widely publicised in the JEP and other online forums. But the fact of the matter is, they get most of it all wrong anyway, and then they do tiny small retractions. But by that point, the damage is already done, and that's part of the consensus which I found up here, that the actual newspaper reporting the issues get it wrong, and then there's no retractions or big headlines to sell something. So we made a mistake.
In your case, did you accept your guilt? Have you accepted your guilt?
Oh, I've accepted my guilt and moved on. It's just a matter of now just wasting my time up here when I could actually be out and trying to rebuild my life. But unfortunately, the court has decided I have to stay up here for X amount of time, learn my lesson, even though I've already learned it, before I can get out and move on.
What do you make of, obviously people say, well, what about the people you've harmed? Presumably you've harmed somebody, stolen their goods, or whatever you've done. How do you reconcile that in your head?
I mean, obviously, I do feel remorseful, apparently, for the stuff which I've apparently done. But, I mean, obviously being up here is, well, no comfort. I don't know if it's any comfort to the so-called victims or not, but, I mean, the way I look at it is prison. Okay, you've done a crime, you've had your freedom taken away. So, but once you get out, obviously you do get that freedom within a sense. But being over here on such a small island, that freedom never seems to fully integrate until you actually leave the island and you actually move on. but obviously everybody knows everybody else over here, and it's always brought up 5, 6, 7 years down the line or something like that. It's like, really, that happened that amount of time ago, and yet it's still being brought up. So much for trying to start a new life. And that, unfortunately, over here is one of the bad negative effects, because having it re-brought up over and over and over again, you end up recommitting the same or different offence or something like that, and you end up back in the same situation.
What age was your first conviction?
19.
And you're approximately, what are you now?
I'm 35, so yeah.
Do you think, because one of the other guys I interviewed was 34, and his life had been in care, out of care, all sorts of horrible things. He'd had sounded quite a miserable life. Now, has yours been a happy life insofar as you've got a family in Jersey?
Well, I've got a family in Jersey. I wouldn't say I've had a happy life, because I was constantly bullied for most of my time during childhood, and I suppose that's part of the reason why of my behaviour and why I've been incarcerated.
Right.
But before you asked me if it's about Gene, I wouldn't say it's about Gene. I would say it's more about the nurture on Jersey.
Right.
Unfortunately, the nurture on Jersey I've found isn't that good.
And we all hear about the wonders. They seem to do everything right in Scandinavia, and they send people to prison there. They have a smaller prison population, but they have fewer people reoffend. Now, I don't know what's different about Scandinavia. Maybe they got more space and they've got less opportunity to reoffend. I don't know.
No, I think from what I've read and what I've heard about Scandinavia, when you are incarcerated, there's an awful lot more one-on-one sessions with different people to help rehabilitate yourself. So you are given a lot more courses, activities to do. As far as I know, you spend a lot more time out yourself doing something productive with yourself.
Why do you think some people commit offences? Obviously, there's a huge range of offences. What might be an offence to somebody might not seem like an offence to somebody else. But why do some people get involved and have to finish up in prison, but other people don't? Is it just luck of the draw, do you think?
Well, yeah, luck of the draw, and depending where you are on this earth, because as you said, what is considered criminal in some places are legal in others.
Yeah.
For example, cannabis, for example.
Right.
I mean, it's legal in most areas of the world now, but yet we're still behind the times. Jersey for itself could be a wonderful place, I mean, if they legalised it, because the amount of tourism which would bring onto this island, and they can tax it properly and distribute it properly, and most of that issues then would become a lot better. But the way they just kind of bury it and push it down and make everything more and more illegal, it's not going to stop anybody from doing it. It's just going to carry on.
It is a bit ironic, isn't it, that you can have offences which tomorrow might not be offences.
Exactly, yes. And judging by the way I think Jersey will be going, I mean, for example, I'd say cannabis will become legalised. Maybe not for a couple more years or so, but what happened with those people who have had drug offences for that particular product? Will then that charge just be removed from you after you stand at a police station? No, because once something's on there, that's it, then on there for life.
Right. Because I'm always mindful of the scientist or the mathematician who was homosexual, and he got convicted and it destroyed him, and he committed suicide eventually.
Indeed, yeah.
And then latterly he was given a pardon, because it ceased to be an offence. Now it seems extraordinary, and there are thousands of people say, well, that's happened to me. I haven't killed myself, but I'm still alive and I've been prosecuted. I want a pardon as well, and that's fair dues, isn't it?
It should be indeed, but unfortunately, as I have noticed, Jersey is at least 10, 15 years behind the times with everything. So, I mean, obviously, in the case of that person who did commit suicide, that's no good for him now, because obviously of what's happened. So everything is hindsight. I mean, you can have perfect hindsight, but Jersey just do need to catch up with the current times, unfortunately, and I don't see that happening for a long, long time.
With in Jersey, what organisations have you encountered that are helpful?
Well, to be really honest, I haven't really gone to many organisations once I get out of
No.
here. I mean, lucky for me, I do come from a very supportive family, so they have helped me a lot. But really, the only charity which I kind of got semi-involved in once I've been out was the Salvation Army, and that's through one of the chaplaincies up here, getting me out, coming down for a coffee and going through that. and the other was my mum's charity, which is the League of Friends down at the General Hospital.
Now, the Salvation Army obviously is a Christian organisation. Is that a factor in your life? Does that mean anything to you, Christianity?
I was raised Roman Catholic, but I believe in a higher power, but I don't believe in necessarily an all-powerful God, but I do understand that there is an order to the universe.
Because there is a process in Christian. I'm not a Christian, but there is a process about forgiveness. And it does seem as though the prison system doesn't really embrace forgiveness, does it? I mean, I know people want to
I wouldn't say it's a prison system generally. I would say it's just Jersey generally.
Really?
I mean, if you get off Jersey, you find people are a lot more forgiving. I think it's just the society and the intolerance over here, which is a key factor to people reoffending.
Because I know Aitken, I forget what his first name was. Aitken, he was in the UK, he was in the government minister, and he went to jail for some offence. And now he's a minister, he's a prison chaplain now. He was turned around by the prison, but it was meeting the other prisoners, I think, that really was the effect on him, because he realised that they were missing out. They were not being helped, so he became a chaplain. I can't paraphrase his career, but that's a sort of it wasn't the system as such, it was just the circumstance that people found themselves. Is there camaraderie amongst prisoners?
Well, yeah, I mean, prisoners do try to help each other out, but they're obviously most people up here do just want to keep to themselves. They just want to serve their time and get out and carry on with their life. Unfortunately, just circumstances all put us together. So we try to do. Some people just try to make the best of a bad situation and stick together. Other people decided just to not do that and just call the services throughout. So it's catch-22. You get some people just trying to get on with it, and other people just seem to thrive on disruptions.
And of course, there are all sorts of security problems about groupings of prisoners, I suppose, which the prison authorities have to keep an eye on, otherwise they finish up with a prison breakout or something will go wrong. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and they have to. And I was speaking to the other guy, one of the interviews I did, and he was saying, of course, if you're in there for a number of years, your friends tend to become prisoners. So if you want prison visits, for example, that can be problematical because they're ex-prisoners. So there's a security issue there. Is that something that you've encountered?
That would be true, yes. I mean, I have heard it takes somebody about 200 hours to get to know somebody properly and to become classes of friends.
Right.
Obviously, on the outside, that's a lot more hard because obviously work life and family life get in the way. But obviously, as we are all here together in such close quarters, that 200 hours seems to go in a snap of the fingers. So, yes, prisoners do end up becoming friends up here.
How do you rate the running of the prison itself? I mean, it's a small prison. There's not many prisoners, 150 or something, I think. So is it well run?
Well, I mean, they do their jobs. They come in and try to look after everybody, but it's catch-22 depending which areas you want to look at. I mean, some areas I have noticed have improved, such as the food quality from what happened 11, 12 years ago to what it is now. But other areas have not improved at all, such as mental health and rehabilitation. As I said, with the gardening, it's good for me because I enjoy it, but other people find absolutely no benefit for themselves, as they're never going to become gardeners on the out or things like that, so for that is no rehabilitation whatsoever.
There are all sorts of weird rules that I've heard about, but obviously people who want to study, the difficulty over getting books, people who want to make model kits can have the model kit but not the glue, all sorts of very strange things which aren't very helpful, are they?
No, exactly, yeah. I mean, the models and board games and items like that are a key example. Yes, you can get models, but you're not allowed glue, which, I mean, I do understand the logic, but, I mean, a model course is designed to have glue, so that seems to defeat the process itself. Board games, yes, you can have board games, but you're not allowed any expansions, and obviously in here, there's only so many times you can play a game before it starts getting boring. And those who do want to do the courses, such as Open University, for example, I would love to do that, but unfortunately I have noticed with how badly it's all organised. People have got books down from the Open University, they end up being the wrong ones, so they've had to be sent back, and then by the time they do get the new books down, the course is already started, so they're trying to play catch up. Specialist software for these courses are only put on 6 months to a year later, by which point the course is already finished. And of course there's cost involved as well. And people who do want to do the courses either have to have the money themselves, which can be quite expensive to begin with, or get a bursary, and chances are most of that time it won't even happen anyway.
Obviously, the thing we're playing with now, the computers, it allows you to have a relationship with a teacher or somebody who doesn't have to be in the prison at all. Is that encouraged at all? Can you have a remote learning process? You say Open University, which would be, but at a local level, could you have it?
Well, yes, the system could be designed for that. However, from what I've noticed, they don't want to seem to implement that technology. We have the technology to make prison a far better place for learning, but they're simply not bringing in and implementing that technology to help.
Right. If a group of prisoners got together and said, we'd like to study something or other specific, would they, has it ever been suggested they might bring a tutor in for once a week or once a month, even just to...
To be honest, I don't think that would happen. I think security would see that as a risk and not allow us.
Really? There was a scheme which they were much talked about, allowing prisoners out towards the end of their sentence on release schemes. Is that still active, or is that fallen on its...
I think that's fallen on deaf ears.
Is it?
For witnesses, I don't think that's going to happen.
You've mentioned deaf. Now, people who've got disabilities, I don't know if you've got any disabilities, but generally speaking, what support is there if you've got a disability there in the prison?
Well, none, as far as I can see. I mean, we've had a couple of deaf prisoners come throughout the time here, and the support given to them is basically, if you want something, write it down and we'll try and get it done. But chances are those applications are come and lost. And yeah, I mean, people do try, but it all depends on the specific guard itself, how much they want to help, and obviously different people have different views. So it's catch-22, and there's no specific standards set throughout the prison.
What's your guess? In 2 years' time you'll be released. Do you think you'll finish up back in Moye?
Obviously, I hope not, as obviously I have learnt my lesson.
Have
But
you?
unfortunately with Jersey, you never know what you
can I
are
start-
on the radar. It's very difficult to get off the radar, even after time has been served and everything else like that. Obviously, Jersey is such a small community that once your name has been highlighted, that's it, unfortunately.
You've used the key word there, I've learnt my lesson. If that's true, what has taught you your lesson by the prison process? Is there anything
Well, it's not the prison process that's taught me the lesson. I've just come to the lesson myself.
Have you?
Unfortunately, I mean, I myself do an awful lot of reading because it's the only way to get through the time here, because obviously you've got the TV, but that all becomes very boring after a couple of months and stuff like that. So I just escape into books, and we do have an adequate library up here, and there are more self-help books which you can read, and that myself has kind of helped me a bit by self-help and not by prison help.
Visiting has been curtailed. It's now back on, I believe. What level of visits do you get?
Well, I mean, I used to have visits once a week, but obviously after this COVID has hit, I mean, I've unfortunately lost a parent while I've been in here, so that's been it's been a trying time for me. But my other parent, who would want to come up and see me, we basically mutually decided not for him to come up until the COVID restrictions are relaxed a bit more.
Right.
Because we're quite happy talking on the phone at the moment, but I know he would want to come up and see me because it has been an awful long time since I've seen him face to face.
Right. Because this is another thing, prison breaks contacts with your friends, your network that you've got, family, friends, whatever it is, if you can't see them easily. And it is obviously, it is a separation, that's why you're in there, to separate you, but it does have a destructive effect, doesn't it?
Oh, it very much does indeed, and they do have this technology called Purple Visits. But I've noticed myself that even my best friend who's off the island had great issues with trying to get herself set up so she could actually Purple Visit with me, and in the end, no matter how many times we tried, she couldn't get it working, so we just ended up calling it a day on that. We just end up now just talking on the phone. If you're not computer savvy, such as getting this Purple Visit set up, then it is very difficult to maintain face-to-face relationships. The only way to do that is to come up and have a physical visit. But obviously, if you're not on the island, that becomes impractical.
Well, there's been some strange going on with the governor who left. You've now got a new governor. I know he's a new governor, acting governor. Has anything changed as a result of that, as far as you're concerned?
No, nothing's really changed. The day-to-day operations seem to be the same with the acting governor, whoever that may be at the moment. Obviously, I don't know why the old governor fully left, because, I mean, obviously, you had the bit of coverage in the newspaper saying the governor of Jersey is no longer there, but we had no more details, and I still don't know what the details were for why he originally left us.
I presume as an outsider, a small community like a prison, anything that happens, it spreads around immediately, but presumably not.
Well, no, but that's the same with Jersey, unfortunately. I mean, as you said, it's such a small community. You say one person to one person in the space of a day, it's all around the island. It's the same with prison or any small community, that something is said, and before you know it is being changed, twisted, and everything else like that, until you don't know what the original story was to begin with.
Right. If you wanted to study music in the prison, would you be allowed to do that?
I mean, well, I'm a musician myself, so you do have the option of learning, but once again, it's self-study.
Right.
There's no music teacher or anything else like that to come up here. I don't know if there was ever a music course up here to begin with or not, but I mean, I knew that there were various courses, but they've all fallen by the wayside with the people coming and going.
So if somebody wanted to learn a guitar, which is a relatively small instrument, would they be allowed to have a guitar?
They are allowed guitars, yes, and obviously, but there are no instructors. It's all other prisoners teaching or self-taught.
Right. Whatever crime you committed the last time or the previous time, have you had any contact with the people who the crime was committed against? If there was a person, maybe there wasn't a person, I don't know.
There wasn't a person for my specific case, so it's more to do with other offences. So I've got no supposed victims. The victims are myself, just myself, really.
Right, and obviously that's an issue when you come out. I mean, they will have restrictions on some people, like where you can go and things like that. I don't know, because obviously if there's a specific, prisoners must be a bit fearsome that when they come out, somebody's going to punch them on the nose, mustn't they?
Well, yeah, I mean that is the option, but I mean you do get access to the gym, so you can bulk yourself up. If you are in fear of that possibly happening when you do get out. But my experience, if you just keep to yourself and just get on with life and just let things wash over you, then you can get a bit of a semi.
I'm interested in that because that's all part of the social consequence. Because obviously you've been in prison before, you've come out. Now, has that been restricting on you? You're a musician, so presumably you want to play somewhere. Does it restrict what you can do?
Well, I mean, for me, yes. I mean, it's restriction on what jobs I could get and stuff like that. And obviously, I did manage to get a job and hold it down for 10 years. But unfortunately for me, it was the drink that got to me, and trying to go through work to get enough for cost of living, a pay rise and a general increase, ended up me to drink even more because they kept saying no to me, even though I knew how much the company in question was making and they could easily afford a pay rise to help me out. They keep saying no, and that's what ended up me to recommit. You
mentioned the demon drink there. Has that been a factor in your...
Well, every time I've been up here, it's been due to drinking one way, shape or form. So
really?
The one thing I have learned now, this being my third offence, is I'm going to be giving up alcohol fully for until the day I pass.
Do you think you can do that? Because obviously in there you can't drink, so it's quite a good training from that point of view. You have to abstain.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the fact that you can't can't get alcohol up here, so there's not really training per se, because some people have been in and out here for drink. Okay, I have managed between my first and second offence for 10 years to stay relatively sober, but towards the end, life just got to me and I ended up drinking more and more. So in respect to that, that doesn't really help, because as soon as you get out there, there's so many places where you can buy a drink. It's an easy spiral, unfortunately.
Right.
And some people do get up here absolutely intoxicated. They clean themselves up, but as soon as they get out, there's no infrastructure to support them, and they just get back onto the bottle. And it's a never-ending cycle, unfortunately.
The world is a very extraordinary place at the moment. Obviously, there's so many stupid things going on. I mean, obviously, if the virus is stupid or not, I don't know. But do you have any fears about coming out of prison? No, you're quite happy till you can cope with everything that's going on, if it's still going on.
No, I mean, I'm sure by the time I get out, COVID will still be around. Unfortunately, it's a disease which isn't going away anytime soon. And obviously, with this first proper winter, I'd say the COVID virus itself might mutate again. So even if we do get a vaccine for COVID-19, there's going to be COVID-21 or COVID-22. So unfortunately, this virus isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So obviously, being up here, yes, you're isolated to a point, but it's still out there, and
because that's one of the factors. A lot of people do go back to jail because they can't cope with the outside. Once they get outside, find it tough and commit an offence of some sort just to get themselves back in again.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, if you've got no money, especially on journey, people do find prison a lot better places. It's a lot safe. You do have access to 3 meals a day. You've got beds, hot water, shower facilities, and items like that. So for some people, prison is a blessing in disguise.
It's for me, it's very interesting talking to you. I don't know whether it's interesting to you to talk to somebody else. I just don't know. It's a strange system, isn't it, being locked?
It is a very strange system, but it has been useful talking anyway.
Okay, well, anything else you want to tell us? Any good news, bad news you want to tell us that's occurs to you locked up there? And
well, I mean, it's all relative. I mean, the good news is, I'm reading a lot more and I'm off the drink, but that's purely for myself. But the bad news is there doesn't seem to be any changes in the system or any more help being offered. And especially with the current COVID, as we've said, that's been a big key factor with everything up here. As most of the stuff which was happening with what limited support there was is now shut down because of the COVID issue.
Okay, we'll stop there, Edward, and if you ever want to phone up again, if your situation changes,
yeah, go from there.
Maybe you want to discuss with some of your fellow prisoners there, maybe.
Yeah, I'm happy to, yes.
Okay, nice to speak to you.
And nice to speak to you as well.
Bye.